Welcome back and happy Friday everyone. Here we are for chapter 1041 first read reaction. This was a chapter that followed a break week and a break week that I very much needed. I wasn't able to record or edit, but the scripts for the future videos are top tier. I'm really excited about my Conquerors hockey video that's coming up. But anyways, if you're new to my channel, the way I view the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the ParVision. So here we have the continued chapter story on the cover where Pudding dishes out some revenge on Niji and Yonji on behalf of Sanji. I thought this was really cute. All of this makes me feel like it's even more definitive that we're going to see a return of Germa and Pudding in the story in the future. That being said, I know this would probably fall under a gag scene, but isn't this Pudding bypassing Germa's exoskeletons with her punch? Is that the legendary fist of love patented by the hockey master Garp? Just kidding, it's probably not anything serious, I just thought it was pretty funny. But anyways, the title of this chapter is Komurasaki, and I don't see that being a mistranslation and is understandable considering what is shown in the chapter. So moving on to the start of the chapter, this was really great to see Momo finally declaring that he was the one who spoke with Zunisha briefly. Then it shows that when Zunisha was shown behind the ships in that previous chapter, he was speaking to Momo and then saying he is awaiting Momo's order, and Zunisha came ready to square up. This is actually absurd to think about, because Zunisha will somehow play a role in the battle, which kind of feels obvious, because why else would he be here? But like, how do you counter Zunisha? Like, if you were to continue the CP0 battle tracker, then how exactly would you quantify Zunisha as a force? And with what the Beast Pirates have left, what could they possibly have to counter Zunisha? I'm going to be thinking about the possibilities because it doesn't make sense for something like Zunisha to be introduced for him to just be this overwhelming and unopposed force that shows up to Wano, especially at this stage. Like, it's interesting with the timing because the only person left to defeat is Kaido, and up until now we kind of get the feeling that Luffy will win. Pretty much every other antagonist present has already been dealt with. So what fighting purpose can Zunisha provide now? Like, it wouldn't make sense for Momo to be like, oh, Zunisha, we don't need you anymore. Sorry, thanks. So this will definitely be expanded on in my deep dive video, where I think of what Zunisha's presence means for the future of Wano. Does Zunisha actually fight? What order will Momo give Zunisha? And again, a constantly reoccurring thought is what new players might show up on Onigashima to further explode this war. But okay, moving on to this line, and I want to emphasize again, I'm going to try to not focus too much on the wordings of things until the official translations drop, and just focus on the overall ideas and messages presented. So here, according to what Yamato says next, Odin predicted that Momo would be the person who leads the world to its dawn, which is probably what Momo read when he realized he cannot die. And this is the biggest part, and I wish you guys heard the conversation between me and Mosh. Back in January, we got into a Discord call talking about an epiphany we had about the recent chapter, which by the way, we decided to just start streaming these conversations, so look out for those announcements. But the epiphany was basically that Odin's journal was the end of One Piece, like the show. We low-key had an existential crisis because we were like, wait, if Odin's journal is there, and even if there were poneglyph texts in the journal, which Yamato and Momo wouldn't be able to read, Robin is there. But essentially with the information in that journal, it contains all the information relating to the One Piece and the end stages of how this show should end. So we said the journal had to be destroyed, and I didn't make this video yet, but you know how I made that Shiki video where I was saying Oda has made the movies to contain elements within it that foreshadow the future of the manga? Well, Odin's journal to me paralleled the movie Stampede, the presence of the laugh-tail log pose. Both items are basically end-stage One Piece shortcuts. People would kill for either one if their presences was known. So long story short, Mosh and I theorized all the different ramifications for its presence, and I really like this setup that Oda went with. Pages were torn out of the journal, which is perfect, and honestly the simplest way to avoid the expedited end of One Piece. According to the chapter, it seems like Momo is assuming Odin is the one who ripped out the pages from the journal, which kind of doesn't make too much sense to me right now, but makes me feel like we might actually get more backstory regarding the journal. If the journal went from Odin, then to Yamato, and then to Momo, maybe instead of Odin being the one to rip out the pages, someone else ripped out the pages before Yamato received it. But if it were Odin, I'd imagine in the future we'd get an explanation as to why he ripped out those pages. Maybe those pages weren't discarded but rather sent somewhere else or to someone else. And so with this new information, we see later what seems to me like very strong character development for Momo. He understands his deficits, takes into consideration his prophesized role, all while now successfully pulling Onigashima, and is taking into consideration the present situation of Wano. To me, this situation right here kind of foreshadows a future relationship, where because Yamato hears and respects Momo, this makes it feel like Yamato will remain on Wano and become the commander-in-chief essentially of Wano, helping Momo secure Wano's safety, and she'll probably do this while maintaining the title of Oden, to further exonerate Oden's name publicly as well, and bring back the original Oden sentiment of being this overwhelming protector of Wano. And on top of that, serving as a really powerful mentor for Momo to get an absurd power boost before the end of the series. Maybe not too different than what Kobe got. And holy guacamole, I realized that I've only talked about 2 pages, and I still gotta get through this crazy chapter. So just recapping quickly, the next parts, Raizo wins, but also Jinbei finds Raizo. And there's 2 things on this page that I was a little bit more focused on. The first part was that Jinbei is basically a firefighter. Jinbei has been playing this search and rescue this entire time, and then stopped to clap who's who while just being one of the most valuable players in the war. The second thing I want to point out is that Raizo says to Jinbei, and I wonder how this will be translated in the official drop, but he says the preparations are almost complete. What preparations? For what? Again, most of the war is done. Luffy just has to beat Kaido, right? And we're basically already there, so what are these preparations even for? But okay, now we get to the scenes that the entire chapter is titled after, Komurasaki. I think these pages are pretty straightforward, to be honest. She confirms that yes, this is Hiyori who has duped Orochi. Orochi is in turmoil because he realized he fell in love with Oden's daughter. But more than that, I think this is definitely the end of Orochi, right? So that means his devil fruit will be up for grabs, I think? I wonder if it makes sense for Hiyori to take the fruit. But then it's also kind of weird because of the concept of inherited wills, especially that we sort of see with the Mera Mera no Mi, or some people theorize with the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Even though Orochi's fruit is powerful, I low-key wouldn't want it because he was the previous owner. I wonder if there's a way to like cleanse a fruit of its will, because I definitely don't want Orochi's will. Now we go to the next scene, which is super hype, Izo. And Izo shows his real strength. I'll admit my previous deep analysis of the Izo versus CP0 scene missed certain things, but now I really want to see how they animate the part where Izo lifts his gun and tells the CP0 not to go yet. I definitely want to know what was said in between that and this fight. But Izo seems to 2v1 the masked CP0 members that no-diff Drake and Apu and 2 numbers. Izo seems to double knockout with the taller masked member, whose name seems to be Maha. This guy seems to be undamaged from all previous fights before fighting Izo. So not only did Izo 100-0 Maha, but the primary masked CP0 member here is absolutely shook. Imagine being part of the strongest intelligence agency the world government has to offer and being worked by a washed up Whitebeard commander solo. But I'm also a little confused because did this guy not participate in the fight and just let Izo 1v1? It looks like he was just sitting down, and it's a little unclear to me right now. But honestly, this is kind of pitiful for the CP0, but also by proxy kind of undermines my perspective of the Revolutionary Army. The Revolutionary Army are consistently clashing with CP0, and a single washed up Whitebeard commander was able to literally wash 2 masked CP0 members. And Robin had said the masked members are in a league of their own. I wonder if there's a special ability that Izo has that allowed him to do this, because after the fact, the primary CP0 guy said that Izo had always planned to take down at least one of them. That line really piqued my interest on what happened with this fight. I think this might be a place where there might be an anime original scene that plays out the fight. And now we get to a really important info drop. It seems like the character that the Gorosei wanted to eliminate was actually just Luffy, which is really interesting given my deep analysis of the situation in 1037. The information was relayed by I think the last CP0 member who apparently has just been sitting idly in this room the CP0 originally holed up in. Is this guy actually just useless? Why is he telling this dude to take care of Luffy when he could just go do it himself? But this is actually ridiculous that this dude is expecting anyone to interfere in a fight between Kaido and Luffy. First of all, if anyone did, we'd get a repeat of the Oden fight and Katakuri fight. The Oden fight where Kaido was enjoying that he was almost taken down, but the clone fruit user underhandedly distracted Oden mid-fight, leaving Kaido with an unsatisfied outcome for the fight. Given Kaido killed the person who interrupted that fight, I'm sure Kaido would react similarly if something like that were to parallel. But also if anyone tries to hurt Luffy like what happened in the Katakuri fight, where Luffy got injured and Katakuri got an unfair hit in, Kaido might also reciprocate that. But I'd imagine Kaido would be more proactive and might even protect Luffy before he had even gotten injured, so that he can continue his fight that he's thoroughly enjoying uninterrupted. But even with this order, I don't think this CP0 member will be able to act on it considering Drake enters the scene and is going to have a salty run back, it looks like. Now that the CP0 member is visibly fatigued, Drake might prove himself worthy as a Straw Hat ally since this would be directly protecting Luffy. And so going to the next panels, we get some interesting updates about various important members of the crew. Usopp declared that he won't let Kinemon or Kiku die. So to me, that's basically just saying neither of them are dying because it's God Usopp declaring something. But also, is it weird that Usopp is commanding Hamlet alone without Tama? Did I miss a thing where Tama commanded the gifters to follow Straw Hat commands, or was it just to help them? Probably doesn't mean much, but then we get to a big scene. All the anxiety around what will happen to Zoro. Frankie ends up being the hero he needed. Somehow he managed to find Zoro and grapple hook Zoro. In this panel, Zoro kind of looks like the nothing happened scene again, but just upside down here. He looks kind of dead to me, and it'll be absolutely wild if Zoro has like a Brook moment where his soul has to return to his body or something. Or maybe this is going to be an explicit reference to Oda's joke where he says Zoro died and his soul got lost so he stayed alive. But I can't wait to see. It is going to be so interesting to find out what actually happened and what that Grim Reaper was. But now we move to more main character updates. We see an interesting interaction again. Big Mom is defeated and now Nami seems to have full control of Zeus, despite Zeus being emotional about Big Mom's defeat. And the next panels are kind of straightforward, but the main thing is that it's kind of funny at this point, but Law and Kid are resolving themselves for Luffy's victory because if Kaido is the winner, they don't think that they can muster up any more strength. But they also kind of said that a few more times previously, and then they actually did muster up more strength. But again, it's being framed up that it's all up to Luffy. And there we go, and we get a continuation of their fight. Kaido realizes Big Mom has lost and lets out a conqueror's shout. And then we go into a flashback that shows us young Big Mom and her ambitions, but also her perspective of teaming up with Rocks. This is a really interesting detail, to be honest, and it kind of lines up with some of the sentiment that was talked about in my Rocks Mystery Dream video. But okay, we end this chapter with absolute demon energy. Oda drew this absolute menace of a panel. Luffy doesn't even look recognizable here. And also, the more we see this flame cloud smoke cloak thingy, the more and more I think Luffy's fruit isn't simply the rubber fruit. But he pulls out Gear 4th Snake Man Hydra, which I'm guessing would just be a Gatling version of his Snake Man punches, which is also imbued with Conquerors now. That's basically where the chapter ends, with Luffy making the strongest declaration of victory he has done any time in the story so far, where this time we see Kaido actually caught off guard and taking damage at the same time. This doesn't look like it's the end of the fight, but if there were a time for Kaido to pull out one more level to his powers, I think it would be now. On Luffy's end, Hydra is an innovation, but I kind of have a feeling that there's one more level to this fight, especially taking into consideration the preparation that Raizo talked about, Zunisha's presence, and the CP0 orders, and just Kaido in general. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. There's no break week next week, but these chapters make me wish I had a pause button so I can catch up with everything I'm trying to post and keep on top of it. I can't imagine how Oda organizes all of these moving parts the way he does and brings them all together for this amazing and absurd story. And so, like always, thank you for connecting with me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all on the next ParVision.